The old stairs groaned under their weight, each creak echoing through the empty halls like a ghostly lament. Dust swirled in the air, thick with the smell of decay, as if the house itself was exhaling its ancient breath. Each step was a journey into the heart of the mansion's darkness, a descent into the unknown where shadows danced and secrets whispered. Whispers teased their ears, cold and sharp like icy fingers, sending chills down their spines and making their skin crawl. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling, barely audible over the eerie silence that enveloped them. Alex strained to listen, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest, each beat a reminder of the fear that gripped him. The whispers seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, as if the very structure of the house was alive and speaking to them. Or was it the shadows playing tricks on them? The darkness seemed to shift and move, creating figures that vanished as quickly as they appeared. He shook his head, trying to appear brave, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. "It's just the wind," he lied, his voice wavering. He wanted to believe it, but deep down, he knew better. They reached the top of the stairs, their breaths coming in short, nervous gasps. A long, dark hallway stretched before them, lit only by the pale glow of the moon filtering through the cracked windows, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air grew colder, sending shivers down their spines. This house was alive, its presence palpable and menacing. They could feel it watching them, an unseen force that seemed to lurk in every corner, waiting, watching, and biding its time. "Mia?" Alex's voice echoed in the empty hallway. Where had she gone? 1 minute she was right behind them, and the next, gone. Panic tightened its grip on his chest. He ran to the nearest door, throwing it open. An empty guest room, dusty and cold. He checked every room, his fear growing with each passing moment. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the creaking of the old house. "Mia, where are you?" His voice cracked. He leaned against the wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence answered. It was a heavy, oppressive silence. The silence of the grave. They found Mia in the master bedroom, a place that seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to happen. It was a grand room, filled with shadows and the ghosts of forgotten elegance. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust, mingling with a faint, almost imperceptible hint of something floral, long faded. A massive four-poster bed dominated the center of the room, draped in dusty velvet curtains that once might have been a rich burgundy. Now they hung like tattered remnants of a bygone era, whispering secrets of the past. But it was the mirror that drew their attention, an object that seemed to hold a life of its own, an enormous gilded monstrosity that loomed over the far wall, its frame intricately carved with scenes of myth and legend, now barely visible under layers of grime. It seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, a light that flickered and danced just beneath the surface, as if the mirror itself was alive and watching. Mia stood before it, her back to them, her body stiff and unmoving. She seemed entranced, as if the mirror had captured her very soul. "Mia, are you okay?" Emily asked, her voice small and hesitant. Mia slowly turned, her movements mechanical, almost puppet-like. But it wasn't Mia's face reflected in the mirror. Instead, a grotesque mockery stared back at them, a twisted version of Mia that seemed to be mocking their very presence. It was a grotesque mockery, a face that seemed to have been pulled and stretched into a horrifying grin, as if the mirror was distorting reality itself. Her features were twisted into a horrifying grin, a smile that spoke of malice and malevolence, as if the mirror had revealed the darkest parts of her soul. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, a luminescence that seemed to pierce through the darkness, revealing a depth of evil that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The room seemed to close in around them, the air growing colder as the mirror's power became undeniable. A blood-curdling scream tore through the silence. Emily stumbled back, her eyes wide with terror. The creature in the mirror lunged forward, its claws outstretched. But it wasn't coming from the mirror. Shadows writhed on the floor, twisting and contorting. They rose from the floorboards, taking on monstrous shapes, creatures of darkness, with razor-sharp teeth and glowing red eyes. The air crackled with energy. The shadows swarmed towards them, their hisses filling the air. Alex grabbed Emily's hand, pulling her back. "We have to get out of here!" Section 5. Blackwood. The shadows parted. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and skeletal, dressed in a long black coat. His eyes, two burning embers, locked onto them. This was Lord Blackwood. His voice when he spoke was like gravel on stone. "You dare intrude upon my domain?" He raised a hand and the shadows swirled around him like a dark halo. Alex felt a surge of defiance. "We're not afraid of you," he shouted, but his voice shook with fear. Blackwood laughed, a dry, brittle sound. "Foolish mortals," he hissed. "You are already mine." The shadow creatures closed in, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. They were trapped. Section 6. The key. Alex scanned the room frantically, searching for a way out. His eyes fell on the mirror. It pulsed with an unnatural light, the epicenter of the room's strange energy. He remembered the old legend. The mirror was a portal, a key to another dimension. Could it be their way out? He had to try. "The mirror!" he shouted, pointing. "It's the key!" Blackwood turned, his eyes narrowing. "Don't be so naive," he sneered. "You cannot escape your fate." But there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Section 7. Escape. Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed a heavy candlestick from a nearby table and hurled it at the mirror. It shattered with an ear-splitting crack, sending shards of glass flying. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the shattered glass as if it burned them. Blackwood roared in fury, his eyes blazing with rage. The air crackled with raw energy. A swirling vortex of light opened where the mirror once stood. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, beckoning them forward. Alex grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her towards the light. Section 8. The Price of Freedom. They tumbled through the vortex, the light blinding them. The sensation was overwhelming, a mix of fear and exhilaration as they were pulled through the swirling chaos. It felt like an eternity, yet it was over in an instant. Then, silence. They lay on the cold, hard ground, gasping for breath. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The transition from the vortex to the stillness of the forest was jarring, leaving them disoriented and struggling to comprehend their surroundings. They were outside, surrounded by the familiar woods, safe, or so it seemed. The trees loomed tall and foreboding, their branches casting long, eerie shadows in the moonlight. The forest, once a place of refuge, now felt alien and threatening. Alex looked around for Mia, his heart pounding. Panic surged through him as he scanned the darkness, the fear of losing her again gripping him tightly. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow seemed to mock his desperation. He spotted her a few feet away, slowly getting to her feet. Her movements were sluggish, as if she were waking from a deep, troubled sleep. The relief that flooded through him was almost overwhelming. Relief washed over him. "Mia, you're okay!" His voice cracked with emotion, the weight of their ordeal pressing down on him. He rushed to her side, his hands trembling as he reached out to touch her. She turned, her face pale in the moonlight. There was a haunting beauty to her, a fragility that made his heart ache. But something was off, something he couldn't quite place. But her eyes were different. They held a depth, a darkness that hadn't been there before. It was as if she had seen things, experienced horrors that had changed her fundamentally. They glowed with an unnatural light, the same eerie light that had emanated from the mirror. It was a light that spoke of otherworldly forces, of powers beyond their understanding. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. The shadows of Blackwood Manor may have been left behind, but something sinister had followed them home. The forest, the night, even the air seemed to hum with a malevolent energy. Their journey was far from over, and the price of their freedom was yet to be fully realized.